yogurt loaf, and I'm going to, for the flavouring of this, I'm going to use some vanilla and orange. If you haven't got orange, you can use lemon, you can use anything else citrusy. You could also use passion fruit or something like that if you happen to find it in the shops and you couldn't find oranges. I know that lemons and limes aren't always available at the moment. Right, so just to show you what I've got going on here, I've got a piece of baking paper here. I'm going to place my tin in the middle, and I'm going to use a pair of scissors just to cut down towards the corner. So I'm making sure that the tin is roughly in the centre. Okay, and then I'm just going to whiz that round and do the same this way. Okay. And then all you need to do is pop that into the centre and allow the edges to overlap, like so. It doesn't have to be massively neat. And actually this is a bit high. I'll just cut it down. Okay, you're going to be obviously discarding it once your cake is made, so it's really does not have to be, oops, a work of art at all. Right, so I'm going to pop that in there and have that now ready to go for when my cake mixture is ready. Over here, I've got 140 grams of caster sugar. In my bowl over here, I've got 300 grams of plain flour with 1 teaspoon of baking powder and 1 teaspoon of bicarbonate of soda. Remember that when you do take any of use your teaspoon measurements or your spoon measurements, make sure you tap the side, have a scoop of whatever you're measuring, tap it on the side so that it's level, so you're not getting too much on the spoon. I'm also going to crack 2 eggs. Now for this particular recipe, we're going to have, instead of butter, we've got 100 millilitres. I've just got light olive oil here, but you can use vegetable oil, you can use whatever you like. If you don't like to use eggs or you don't have eggs, you can actually increase the oil to 140 millilitres and leave it as is without the eggs, and it'll bake, it'll be absolutely fine. Right, I'm going to crack in 2 eggs. Remember, in cookery and nutrition, so that we don't make a big mess and we're learning how to crack eggs, we're going to use the back of a knife and just give it a little tap down the centre and open it up. Okay, if you get a little bit of shell out, you can just take it out like that. And again, like that. And then always have it over something so that you don't get egg all over the table, and that's my food waste bowl, so that's going to go over there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to mix up my egg and sugar together. You want to make sure they're well mixed. I've got a flexi spatula here, which is very useful. Okay, and really mix it well. You don't want, if you see any streaks of yellow, you know that you haven't mixed it enough yet. Okay, so you want it to be a uniform colour. I'm really mixing in all that sugar, and then I'm going to add a teaspoon of vanilla. So, check that I've got the right measuring spoon, and I'm always going to hold the spoon over a bowl, again, so I don't make a big mess if it spills. So that's going to go in there. There we go, give that a mix. Okay, and then what we're going to do is add our yogurt. So I'm going to pop the bowl back on the scale. Make sure that I get the bowl to 0, because obviously I don't want to be measuring the bowl and the mixture that I've got there. And I'm going to add 100, no, I'm not, I'm going to add 280 grams of Greek yogurt. So that's going to go in. And this is what's going to keep it nice and moist. Obviously, this is in the dairy section of the Eat Well guide. If you are vegan or you are allergic to dairy, choose to have dairy-free. You can use soya yogurt, that's absolutely fine, or another alternative. Right, so I've got that there. I'm going to whisk that in now. You can still use your spatula for this if you like. I've just got this little whisk, which is quite useful. But the spatula is absolutely fine. And then, once I've mixed that all in, I'm going to pour in all of that oil. Now, another cake that we use oil for instead of butter is carrot cake. So any of you who are used to making carrot cake, you'll know, you'll have used that before. Right, so that's getting all mixed up. So it's all well combined. Now I'm going to grate in my orange. Now, I only have one orange left, so I'm just going to use one. Ordinarily, I would use two. The zest of orange. Okay. So I'm just using my fine grater to grate it over the top. Be careful of your fingernails and your knuckles because this is very sharp, and I'm just giving it a couple of scrapes and then moving it because the white part of citrus, of lemons and limes and oranges, is called the pith, and it's quite bitter. So you just want to get the coloured skin in, like that. Okay. And then I'm going to just use my spatula just to scrape that, all that lovely zest in there. That's going to give it lots of flavour. On the top of this loaf, you can roast some cashew nuts or some pistachio nuts or some almonds and just lightly crush them and sprinkle them over the top of your yogurt icing, which I'm going to show you shortly. But it's totally optional, and again, we wouldn't do that at the Beacon because we don't use nuts there, but as you're in your own home, if you would like to do that, you can. Right, and then I'm going to add in my flour. So I'm just going to fold it in by gently pouring about half in first, and then I'm going to fold that in like that. Okay, and then I'm going to do the remaining half and fold that up nicely. There we go. So that is my mixture done. Just make sure you're not over mixing it, but you do want to make sure that all the flour lumps have come out so you don't have any pockets of flour left in there when you bake it. Okay. And all I'm going to do then is I'm just going to pour it into my loaf tin. This can be a bit tricky, so you might need someone to just hold the sides for you. Okay, so that's going to go in like that. It is quite good to, when you are lining your tin, to have it come up the sides quite a lot, because this does tend to rise quite significantly, which is great because it gives you a nice high loaf. But obviously, if you've got the grease proof there, then it does just give a little bit of extra rising room. Okay, and then just spread it out so that it's flat on the top, because otherwise it'll peak significantly at the top and not bake evenly. Right, so that's what it looks like. I'm going to pop that in the oven now for about 40 minutes on 160 degrees. The oven's already on, so I put that on right at the beginning. And remember to check if it's ready by piercing a skewer. Remember, always wear oven gloves when you're taking things in and out of the oven. If it doesn't come away clean, put it in for another 5 minutes. It can take 50 minutes, sometimes even 55. It'll depend on your oven and that sort of thing. So I am going to do that, and then I'll get back to you with the icing. So the orange and yogurt cake has now come out of the oven. I'm very glad I've had a little bit of extra parchment around the sides here because it has risen significantly. I'm going to lift it out after a couple of minutes, just place it down, and then I'm going to put it on a cooling rack so that it doesn't, as the moisture condenses from the cake, that it doesn't create a soggy wet bottom. So that's what we're going to do. You can see it's come away, it's nice and brown underneath there, it's nice and light. And we're going to allow it to totally cool completely, because if we don't, once you add any icing to the top of it, it'll just melt off and it won't be nice at all. So I'm going to leave it to cool on a cooling rack, and then we'll be back to ice it in a minute. So to finish off our yogurt cake, I'm going to add some honey, about a tablespoon of honey to my bowl. You can use some icing sugar if you have not got honey. I'm going to then add some Greek yogurt. Again, if you are going to be dairy free, you can use soy yogurt or another alternative. We've talked about how you can adapt this recipe. So for this yogurt loaf, we have said that you don't have to use eggs. You can add extra oil, so instead of 100 mils it would be 40 mils, and we'd take out the eggs. If you wanted to use almond flour for this, you could use, almond flour would work really well with this dish or this loaf. So all I've done is a little bit of honey, some Greek yogurt. I would say I've got about 4 tablespoons of Greek yogurt in there. Then I'm just going to have, if you like zest, I'm going to put a little bit of orange zest in there. And then just squeeze a little bit of the orange in. If you don't want to do orange, we have put vanilla in here, so you could put a couple of drops of vanilla instead. I'm just going to soften that out. Mix that up together. There we go. And then simply spoon it on. So I'm going to pop that over the top. And this is something you want to eat straight away, because it's going to obviously being yogurt, it doesn't have as much of a shelf life as, say, icing sugar, an icing based mix, but obviously it's healthier, it's not as sweet, and we've just put honey in this one. So there we go. You can make more if you would like. I'm going to put all the measurements on a recipe for you. And as I said before, if you wanted to, you can roast and crush up some cashew nuts, some almonds, or some pistachios to pop onto the top, like that. And there we go. We're going to slice that and have a look at what that is going to be like inside for you. Okay, and I'm going to get my big knife for this. Okay, so just remembering to hold your fingers away when you slice. I'm just going to do a couple. This is obviously quite a big knife. Okay, and there we go. We've got a couple of slices today for my kids. I'm going to do right now to have a try. That's lovely. Hope you enjoy it. Send in photos as you have been doing for house points, and I'd love to see what you come up with.